It is great to be here today. My team begged me not to come up here in a black t-shirt and jeans, so I did put my tie on for the Beltway crowd. So again, thank you very much. I do lead about half of Hewlett-Packard's enterprise business, and the reason we're here today is because the work we do here in the Beltway and the work we do in the public sector and with governments all over the world is our largest focus area and our largest business area. So we're really proud to be with you here today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about really two items today. I'm going to spend I'm going to spend about 15 minutes with you in total. I'm going to spend about the first half of that just talking to you about what we're seeing in the market from a trends perspective, from what we're seeing in regards to opportunities, challenges, and in particular how they affect the public sector. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the next portion of the time just talking you through some examples of how we're helping some of our clients tackle those trends here in the Beltway and how we're helping them achieve their business outcomes. So with that, let me get started. So technology is everywhere, and I think the presentation we just saw from Stephen is a true example that technology is not just about IT anymore. It is in our lives with everything we do day in and day out. We have this insatiable need for data at every point in time. We'll do a little audience participation grade here. I bet you, how many of you have your phone in your hand or in front of you right now? That's right, look at that, which is amazing, right? People want to be connected. They have to be able to log in, see what's going on at any point in time, which is very different than where we were before. So the challenge for IT professionals like us and service providers is how are we able to provide that to our constituents, to our customers, however it may be. And if you take a look at what they're demanding from us, and I'll go to the chart here, it's really around these 5 areas. The first is they're not wanting to go set things up anymore. They want to tap into a service. So what our customers are looking for and what constituents are looking for is they want to tap right in. They want to be able to purchase. They want to be able to use IT as a service. They want to pay for it on a per-use basis, which is very different than what we've seen in the past. The second is, in the example I just showed you a couple minutes ago, anywhere, anytime access. And I think the Africa example is a really tremendous example. I was in Africa 2 years ago, and I was just telling the team here, I remember walking physically up to the top of a hill with my cell phone, holding the sucker up, trying to see if I could get a couple emails. So our constituents, our companies everywhere, the users need anywhere, anytime access all the time. The Internet of Things, we're starting to see smart machines. We're starting to see all types of assets now having IP addresses, and they're able to communicate with other assets, et cetera. And that's going to be a big, big change here over the next couple years as these machines and as these assets are able to start communicating with each other. We then have data monetization, and I love this about what Stephen talked about earlier about data. We all have data, right? Big data, and for me, big data is almost a bad word. What we really need is smart data, right? We need to figure out how can we utilize the data and how can we actually use it for good to the public sector or on the commercial side for actually monetization, and there's still a lot of work to be done there. And then the last is data protection. Right? The new battlefront now is really on cybersecurity. It's around keeping data safe. It's around privacy, et cetera. So these are, when you take a look at what's happening, these are what our constituents and what people are wanting from an IT community. Now, if you take a look at the challenges facing the public sector in general, we're having to look at those opportunities and be able to manage these challenges as well. And the first is really around efficiencies. In IT, we still have to manage a very large traditional base. And we're expected to provide efficiencies year over year on that. Then we've got to worry about staying ahead of the economy and also focusing on national security. Privacy and accessibility, we just talked about that, right? People want more, but they're also expecting us to keep their data and their information private at all times. And then actionable insight gets back to the data question, right? How are we able to provide real insight based on the data that we've got? And then the citizen expectations are just above and beyond anything we've seen before. Now, what's interesting is as IT professionals, we're having to tackle those opportunities I showed you on the first slide, and we're having to focus on these challenges with almost no new investment dollars. So not an easy task for anybody. So with that, the pressure on IT is really at an all-time high. We have never seen the pressure like we've seen before in regards to being able to manage those opportunities and tackle those challenges. And if you take a look what our users are really looking for from us, they want speed. It's all about innovation. It's not just about I need a lower cost. It's I need quicker innovation. Accelerated services, new services, new ideas. This is just a great example of what we saw in Ebola, right? How can we support that activity through technology and do better? Improving flexibility. We can't wait 1 year for an application to be developed. We can't wait for data to come back with insight. You guys remember when we were building applications, version 1.0 would take 9 months, and then it would take another 9 months for version 2.0. These things now have to be provisioned and stood up in days, hours, and sometimes even minutes. And we've got to do more with less. And this is the one that's the hardest for us, because if we had capital available and additional monies available, we could go do all this, but we've got to do more with less. And then at the same time, we've got to go manage risk. So the pressure on IT is an all-time high. And then on top of that, we've got to go deal with these mega trends that we all know so well, and I'm sure they'll be talked about today. But again, big data, cloud, mobility, and security. So we call kind of this journey of being able to deal with these opportunities, to be able to deal with the challenges, and at the same time be able to focus on these mega trends. We call this really the journey to the new style of IT. And as you can see, the demand for the new style of IT is increasing like never before. So when we talk to our clients and when we talk in general around how we tackle this, we think about this in a couple different ways. So the first is, instead of just focusing on managing your IT and managing your traditional, we've got to step back as a community and step back as teams and really think about how can we advise our teams who are building IT around what can we do different to build the business outcomes that really matter over the next 2 to 3 years. So we've got teams that help clients do this all over the world, but that whole advise and step back and think about the road mapping, stepping back and thinking about what do we have currently and what do we want to move to in the future is really critical, because the days of just running IT are not enough to be able to go meet these opportunities and challenges we talked about earlier. So the second part is really thinking about transformation. And when I talk about transformation, it's not just building a transformation plan, right? A plan would be current state, all the steps to get to the future state, and the milestones to go achieve that, and the teams and project plans, et cetera, to go do that. But this is really the actionable part around driving the transformation. So this is a new skill set. And what I'm seeing out in the community these days is this is the skill set that right now is out there the least. And it is required in order to be able to help take our customers and our constituents and give them the accessibility and the new style of IT that they're looking for. And then the last is really around manage, right? So we have to go manage traditional IT. We've got to go drive the efficiencies like everybody expects us to do and reinvest those dollars. But we also have to now focus on how do we manage for the new style. Managing in a cloud environment is very different than managing in a traditional environment. Managing IT with all the data coming up and the big data and the expectations is also very different. You know, the users now have multiple devices and want to be connected anywhere. That's very different than in the past as well. So when we think about how we address kind of this movement from traditional to the new style of IT, and when you think about it, you've really got to think in these three ways, right? How are we going to manage it differently? How do we really build transformation capability? And not just the stuff on paper, but how do we actually drive a transformation? And then the advice that you get on the front end about, you know, how do I actually build a plan to get to where I want to go? So this is how we think about it: advise, transform, and manage. And we've got our innovative solutions at HP where we focus on these three areas for all industries. But we really have a very deep team that focuses on this for our public sector and government work here in the Beltway. So what I want to do now is just transition a bit and just provide you some examples of where we've done this work before. I don't like to just come up and talk about the theory. I like to give the examples of actual work that's been done. And I'm going to walk you through three quick examples today. The first is around the U.S. Department of Navy and our Next Generation Enterprise Network, the NGEN. So this is a great example of where we actually took a third-generation contract with the U.S. Navy and we helped move it to the new style of IT. 390,000 seats were moved from kind of the old traditional world into the new world with new capabilities. We were able to move them from a Windows XP environment to a Windows 7 environment and provide new capabilities so they had the access and the security that the Navy needed. Now, in doing so, we were able to save them over $1 billion. So this is just a great example of being able to focus on the advise, manage the transform, and then really get it into the manage and be able to move into the new style of IT and at the same time drive business outcomes and big savings. The next example is around the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I really like this example because it's simple, yet it really, really tells you how you have to manage in the new style of IT. So how many of you here have an interest in going and standing in line at the HUD and filing a complaint? That's exactly right. So not a lot of people have the time, or even the location to be able to go do that. So the HUD came to us with a problem and said, we have people day in and day out that are out looking for housing and that are being discriminated against, and they don't have a means to be able to go and file a complaint. So what we did is we decided to provide anywhere, anytime access and build an application that allowed users to be able to go online and actually file a fair housing complaint if they feel they've been discriminated against. And so instead of having to go to the HUD, go wait in line, fill out the paperwork, people are now able to download an app, and within 6 minutes they're able to actually file a complaint. And this has changed the way that people think about the HUD, right? So, and it has really connected the HUD to the end user. So we've been able to do this, and it has really driven a nice change. And it's really, if you think about it, this became a mobile citizen outreach program, and it really, really drove nice connectivity. Now, the last example I'm going to talk you through is around the U.S. Army and mobile recruiting. So the Army was really faced with a challenge over the last years, and many of you in the audience probably remember how the Army used to recruit. They would go to a high school, they would basically have a booth, and they would get a big list of names, right, of people and phone numbers. And it was just really an ineffective way to be able to go follow up with candidates and drive recruitment. So what we did is we really sat down and thought about how can we use technology to be able to change that. And we came up with a couple of applications. The first was called eLead, where we were able to actually connect the data that sits out there in a state. And when we meet a recruit, we're able to scan their driver's license, and all the data about that recruit is downloaded into a database. And the recruiters now have phone numbers, have address, have names, have details on these people. And so that was the first. Then the second is we were able to create an app, and it's called Candidates Everywhere. And this is about taking a look at when a recruiter is in a city, he's able to see on an app, based on the data that we have, all the candidates that are nearby. And the recruiters able to drop in, able to go and meet these people, able to go call them, and it's really driven recruitment up tremendously, and we've been able to help do this much more efficiently than it's been done in the past. So again, this is just a great example of how we're able to connect, how we're able to use big data, how we're able to use anytime, anywhere access, and really drive business outcomes for the U.S. Army. So with that, that's really the extent of my presentation. I wanted to keep it short. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the trends and the things that we're seeing in the market, and I wanted to talk a bit about the examples around what we're doing in the Beltway. And what I thought I'd like to do now is just turn it over to a short video to really let you hear from our clients how we're driving business outcomes for them. So with that, let's roll the video, and thank you.
It's one thing to create a vision. It's another to make it happen. What's clear is that it helps to have an experienced partner who's been down that road before.
For Blue Shield of California, innovation is important to our strategy, and HP is helping us think through how we can innovate in the marketplace, especially around our consumer engagement.
I'm most proud of the relationship between DreamWorks Animation engineering teams and HP's product engineering and services groups. That relationship allows us to present HP with problems, and the engineering and services teams basically help us solve them.
In many ways, I think we consider HP just an extension of ourselves. HP manages the technology that is the absolute foundation of the airline, and HP provides the operations for those, the ticketing, the reservations, the flight operations. Basically everything that you see at the airport is in some way powered by HP.
So it's not an issue of looking for extraordinary performance. HP has to perform for us extraordinarily every day to be relevant to us and to help our business grow.
Collaboration, operational excellence, commitment. At HP Enterprise Services, we believe in the power of combining our expertise with yours. Share your vision, and together, we'll bring it to life. HP, your vision realized.
Great, thank you.